Hello and welcome back to Jamie's Man Cave. Another beer review for you today, and sat in front of the Krups beer machine, Krups Sub. So it's the homebrew Pilsner's turn. A little bit of carbonation at the bottom there. There's a nucleated spot in this glass. It was the Angelo Peretti glass that I got free with a box of bottles a few weeks ago from my local bargain Brews. Right, so this is the John Bull Pilsner kit that I put on a couple of months back. It's quite a dark in colour. The head's dissipating quite a bit. It's a slight off-white head, but it is quite dark there, isn't it? It doesn't really look Pilsner or lager. That's the second pour off the machine. The first pour was the one you've just seen at the beginning of the video. For some reason, the first pour is the best pour off. So what I did, which you'll see, you will have seen in that video, is I've attempted to fill the Krups Sub torp with some homebrew. So it's been conditioned in the torp. It's been left in the drinks cabinet for just under 2 months. I lost one of the torps because I didn't realise, but they were stood upright luckily, so the top, which I'd glued back in and sealed, had popped off. Must have been under the pressure from the fermentation in the bottle. So we lost that one, it was no good. This is the second one. It's been in the fridge for about a week, chilling. Yeah, just under 2 months. I was trying to lager it properly this time, give it enough time, because I've done lagers in the past, homebrew kits, and I've struggled to make them work, to be honest. I quite like the look of this one, but we'll see how it goes. So it smells a bit sweet malt, but it smells heavier than what you would class maybe a standard lager or pils. Let's have a taste. Cheers. It's quite light. It has got the sweet malt. It has got a flavour to it that I'm not 100% sure of where it is and what it is. If I think of a Pilsner, I'd be thinking something like Star of Pramen or something down that route is where I was kind of thinking that this kit might lead us. It's not quite that, but then it's not just a light, easy drinking crisp lager either. It has been chilled. It is light and it is a bit crisp. There's a slight bitterness. I mean, it sat out in the garden in the sunshine as a lager or Pilsner goes, it would be okay. But there is a slight flavour to it that's not... I'm just not sure. So as you will have seen through the video of Brew Day, this one was made with the Harris Pure Brew. First time I've used that. It does seem to have made a slight difference. What I did do with it though, because it was a pils and because I didn't want to affect the flavour too much of the kit, I wanted to see what we were coming out with. I just used the brewing sugar, so a kilo of brewing sugar, and I think maybe that's adding to the slight flavour. It's almost like a little bit like a watery sweetness. But then I did brew this short at 21 litres instead of the recommended 23. So maybe it's just a flavour in that particular kit that's a bit different. It's not too bad. It's slightly dry. Would I brew it again? I wouldn't be in a rush, in a hurry to get the John Bull kit. I would try other lager kits or other Pilsner kits first. I'd possibly swap out the just all brewing sugar and go for a light spray malt or an extra light even spray malt and see if that helps. See if I could get a lighter, crisper flavour and taste, and I'd possibly even. I think this, but I used a. I think it was. You'll see it in the video before. The yeast I used from Mangrove Jacks, which I replaced because the one that comes in the kit is a just an ale yeast, fairly generic, and I think that kind of really sort of kicks off really quickly fermentation, and it's done in a week. But what it leaves you with is more of an ale tasting type of end product rather than something that has been taken a bit of time with. And the yeast I used was a lager yeast, so it did ferment in the bucket for just under 2 weeks. Then I bottled it. Then it was again, I think it was about 7 to 10 days in the same room as it was fermenting, it just in the bottles conditioning, and then it was out into the garage, into the fridge for probably what been like another 3 weeks. So it should have had just about enough time. I mean, in another 2 or 3 weeks time it should be even better, but I just think with that original product that you're working with in the John Bull kit, the Pilsner, whatever malt product or extract is in that kit to start with is what's giving it the flavour. So there's not really much more you can mess about with and change. So yeah, as a Pilsner or a lager, a John Bull Pilsner kit, personally I would try a different kit next time. I would try and play about with the other lagers and see if I could find one that fits that flavour profile that I'm looking for. I would probably still use the same yeast again or try a different type of lager yeast. I probably wouldn't use the ale yeast in it if I was trying to get a lager. In terms of does it work through the Krups machine, which was my experiment, as I say, the first pint off that poured perfect, or close to perfect. You saw it in the beginning of the video. The second one came off with quite a bit of head, and it took a couple of attempts to fill that back up. And with lagers and pilsners, because you're trying to get some carbonation into it, you want some fizz and some freshness. Then you're gonna add that into your bottle for conditioning, whereas your bottles are gonna hold it. As I've found out, the torps, reusing the torps, not necessarily is going to be able to hold it. I did glue them in, so what I did, which I might have a separate video that comes out around this of how I did it. Bought the torp online. It has the ones I used had Amstel in, the 5% Amstel lager in it. Use the torps up as you would, wash them out, sterilise them. When it comes to brew day for your home brew, I think it was 6 grams of sugar in there. Fill it up with the home brew, put the bung back in, seal it with a bit of glue and make sure it sticks, make sure the valve's closed, and then away to condition and secondary ferment in the torp, in the bottle, as you would normally. Maybe there wasn't enough glue on one and there was on the other, and that's why I lost one, but that's what happened. And then laying it on its side as it goes into the Krups machine in the fridge for at least a good week, chill it right down, and then transfer it into the machine the same side up so we don't disturb any of the sediment, and let it obviously stay in there for a few hours or overnight so that it's had time to settle enough, and that obviously keeps it chilled at the same time. I'm not quite sure really with these machines. I think they just run it off like compression through the back of it, because in them torps there's a little bag inside, so I think it just keeps the inside of it compressed, so that's what obviously gives you your flow, which maybe is why it's affected the subsequent pints and off the machine and not the first one. Did it work as an experiment? There's quite a bit of messing about with it. I mean, this machine cost me £30 off Facebook second hand. I've had a couple of torps online of it, of the genuine stuff, and I'm not disappointed by it, but they're quite pricey for what they are when you include delivery. And the volume you get out of them, you only get a few pints off one torp, aren't you? It's like 3 pints, just under 4 pints. It's a bit of a mess about trying to swap them over and everything, especially if there's a couple of you around of an evening or something. You're going to be forever swapping over your torps, which is a bit of a pain. But I didn't necessarily get it for that. I thought I could run the homebrew through it, and it would be as close to a draft pint of some homebrew that I'd brewed as I could get. It's not quite worked out as I planned. I think there probably are better machines that you could buy, probably more expensive, but you would probably be able to get away with, I think, what are they, 5 litres? So the 5 litre kegs, or you could probably find in a decent homebrew shop a 5 litre version of that with the proper connection on the top, so you could reuse it and it would keep it gassed up once it's in the machine. I think that's probably what I would have to go for, unless I wanted to fill a full keg up and put a pump system on with everything else. But I mean, just one man on his own with all the will in the world isn't going to drink all of that, so especially homebrew. So that's too big for me at this stage. It does start to get better as it sits in the glass, but I mean, you think of a lager, and this is probably about 4.5, maybe even 5% this as a homebrew. I mean, I don't always check the readings as I should, but as a home or kit brewer, I don't think I've brewed anything under 5% really. I have got, which is in the fridge now, I did another video on my old channel of the Wilco IPA kit, which I dry hopped as well. I've still got bottles in the garage of that, and that seems to be getting a lot better with age. I've got a torp of that in the fridge at the moment, so I could run that through the machine and do that review as well, because that might be a better tasting end product than this one is. So yeah, the experiment has not quite worked. I will still probably try and do it again. Whether I do another lager or pilsner, or my thing is, because when did I start it? I started it in, I think it was February, March. Yeah, maybe early March, late Feb. So what I wanted to do was have enough time to brew it and kind of lager it. So trying to put one on now, ready for summer, is going to be too short a time, and I'm going to rush it, and it's probably not going to taste right again. So maybe next year. I have been looking at the other kits, so I might quite fancy doing an American Pale Ale. I've been looking at a couple of kits. So I might do an American Pale Ale, buy the specific yeast that's good for it. Mangrove Jacks do a good line of it. Possibly even dry hop it as well, and that'll be ready for sort of late summer, autumn time. And then around September, I'm going to put on, I for the past few years I've been doing a stout yearly. It's something that me and my dad have done for many years. We used to do a stout every year for Christmas. We started off, I'm pretty sure we started off on Cooper's stout. It was either Cooper's or Young's stout kit, and they used to sell it in Wilkinson's when they started selling homebrew kits again, around about, maybe it was 2008, something like that. So we started off on them, and then Wilkinson's clocked on to the fact that everybody was buying it and using it, so they started bringing their own brand out. I know it's probably made in the same factory, it's probably a very similar malt extract mix, But I did the Wilco one last year, and I just found that it was a bit lacking in the flavour. It was a bit watery, a bit thin. So in September for this year, I'm going to do another stout for Christmas, but I'm going to do a Cooper's Irish Stout, possibly brew it slightly short, and I'll use the full spray malt extract for the fermentables instead of sugar, and we'll try and get a nice stout on for Christmas, and obviously I'll review that at the time. Stout might work well through this machine actually, because you're not relying on the carbonation, are you? So we'll see. But anyway, John Bull Pilsner kit, it's got a slight flavour to it. I'm not sure quite where it fits in the Pilsner lager category. It's not quite what I imagined it was going to be. Running it through the Krups Sub machine did work, but you're probably losing quite a bit of your final product, just because the first pint pulled off seems to be really good, and then the rest are quite a lot ahead. So it's a bit of playing about with that. So maybe the experiment didn't quite work. But coming up in terms of home brewing, kit brewing, American Pale Ale, I think I'm going to try, and definitely the Irish Stout towards the end of the year. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Cheers.